Welcome to the Digital President Podcast. Today, we're talking about nailing your marketing and sales strategy by writing a book. I'm Michael Reese.
And I'm Woods Davis.
And this is the Digital President Podcast.
We've cracked the code for generating customers online for every business model.
In fact, we wrote the book on it.
We've built multiple multi-million-dollar businesses in as little as 90 days. And the one truth that we discovered is
the best business model is doing what you love and living your life by strategy.
You truly can follow your passion and create the life of your dreams,
as long as you have the right strategy.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm Woods Davis and here with Mr. Michael Reese. Michael, how you doing today, bro?
Man, I'm great, man. I'm so excited.
Yeah, this is an exciting day because we're going to talk about something that's really cool, and it's a process by which you can really take over a niche, take over a market, and it's this process that we call becoming the digital president. And we were talking about a project that we worked on, and we actually executed this process. You became the digital president for this particular niche, for this particular community, and there's a strategy behind it. And the cool thing about it is that this is a strategy that anybody can use. Everybody who's listening to this podcast today who has a desire to build an audience, to build a real business that thrives and build a following of people who love what you do for them because you're solving real problems in your space, they can take this, download it, and actually execute it. And so we're going to really walk through what it means to become the digital president and how they can execute that strategy in their business and in their life. So why don't you kind of give us a little background on the whole digital president movement?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the main things, Woods, is it's really behind becoming the go-to expert. There's so many things. Expert is a loosely used word today.
Everybody's an expert.
Everybody is an expert, and that's okay.
So-called.
Yeah, and the consumer really needs to understand who to go to. Who is the go-to person? Who is the brand? What actually transforms in someone's mind to where they actually start seeking out a specific person or brand because they really they're in their mind, they're positioned in this trusted advisory role, like almost the person to go to so they can go from where they are to wherever they want to go. To me, as a consumer, when I go out and I purchase things and invest things, I'm looking to actually make an investment in something in exchange for something I find valuable. And everybody defines value differently. I can tell you though, when I have the highest level of desire of achieving something, I'm willing to invest more. And so I think
you're willing to seek out the best person to help you achieve that goal, right?
Absolutely. So becoming the digital president is actually a strategy. It's a strategy that is founded within the fabrics of taking the time to not make money, but actually go out and really be strategic about what you're the best in the world at and what you can do to bring the most value to somebody, and then actually having a plan. And when I say a plan, not just spitting in the ocean, but having an actual plan on how you are going to go out and find that audience, communicate to that audience where they're going to live so that you can bring value to that community, and by default, becoming the person in which they go to seek out advice whenever they're going to do whatever it is that they might do. In certain industries, it might be who they seek out in order to invest in real estate. In other industries, it might be who they seek out in order to help them with their marketing or automation. Everything is different. Everybody has a different platform. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we all have somebody that we would go reach out to, or somebody we would ask who would then refer us to somebody. And it's becoming that go-to expert in your niche and building a brand around that.
Right. So what I really like about the concept and what feels really good when you actually understand what digital custody is and understand becoming the digital president, actually taking that ownership and that leadership position for the well-being of the people that you are trying to help. You really are focused on delivering as much value to them as possible, like you had mentioned earlier. And the way that we always do this, and this is kind of behind the scenes, we talk about the power of one and thinking about that one person that you can help and really getting crystal clear on who that person is. A lot of times I say, like, man, if this was my brother or if this was my mother, what would I do for them? Thinking through that process and actually doing that delivering as much value as possible. What are all the things that you would do for that person? And then learning how to do that actually at scale for as many people as possible.
It's true. I think you're probably the best marketing person that I've ever met on the planet. And every time I see you put together your native genius, you're digging for that raw material. You're looking for that message. You're looking for that thing that's going to be at the top of the funnel that literally makes everything else irrelevant. So what I want to ask all the listeners, because I know this is important, I want you to ask yourself, and this is our strategy. Our strategy is founded in writing the book, understanding the problem within your customer. We're really going to give you some context and give you an actual deliverable. If you're interested in becoming the digital president, then we're saying right now, you need to write the book on the biggest problem that's facing your ideal customer. And here's what I mean. I want you to really take a second and I want you to get really clear on what your goals would be in the event you were going to go write a book. Like, why would you do it? Right now, if you have a customer acquisition or a product or service, I'm here to tell you, we literally wrote a book. Within 60 days, the book was bringing in roughly 6 figures plus per month. And we have done that many different times with other products and services online. And we are here to tell you, in our process of actually delivering over a decade of selling literally millions and millions of, last time we did the math, it was over $40 million in products and services over the internet. Nothing made anything more infinitely easier for everything, starting with the book. In fact, Woods, I remember you telling me, Mike, oh my gosh, we've been doing this the hard way. We should just, every time we have a product and every time we have a service, we should write a book. Why did you say that?
Because there's a lot of reasons why, right? And I think we're going to flesh some of those out. But when you write the book, it instantly puts you in a position where you become the trusted authority on that topic. It's like when psychologically would see people on videos and we would associate that with the movies that we would watch and like, wow, that person is a celebrity because we see them on videos on YouTube because we have that association in our mind from watching television, watching movies. That same association exists when we see authors. We see authors as the expert. We've all received tremendous value from books and from authors who have solved real problems for us, especially in the business world. And so when you become that person who has literally written the book on the subject matter, you are the expert by default. There's a positioning that happens. And furthermore, it becomes a scalable way to deliver the value to the people that you're trying to help and also create all of the content that you're going to need to build out what we call the only funnel, because we have literally proven that you don't need a million funnels out there. When you do this, you can actually have just one and have everything flowing through that one funnel, create that perfect cycle for your customer to travel through or your client to come through. And it's an amazing process.
Yeah, and what I want to say is what you do not want to have is you do not want to have a carnival marketing strategy. You do not want to be the carnival marketer, the guy that is promoting throw 3 balls here for a big bear and something over there, and the clowns and circuses that are just here and gone by night. I mean, the carnival marketer, we see their funnels, we see them online, we see the depth in which the thought and the energy and effort that they put into. You can see them coming a mile away just trying to sell something. They're not trying to serve anybody. And so who this podcast is not for is somebody who is only looking to make money. This is about winning the crowd so that you can win your freedom. And what you're going to understand is like this strategy we're going to share with you and walk you through. We're going to walk you through exactly the framework of writing a book. It was amazing. We had a book up and running in an entire funnel within 60 days. The minute that we launched the book, we were literally selling thousands of copies of the book. And that translated into literally hundreds of people overnight investing into programs that people that didn't even know us 30 days ago, into programs where they were investing tens of thousands of dollars. And it was because the book spoke to them. There was a real problem. So it allows you to collapse time on becoming the go-to expert. And I really think it's fundamentally because the strategy builds trust. And it's because you're actually demonstrating that you can help somebody by actually helping them. Because when you write the book and you put it in its right context, then you actually are speaking to somebody, and the book actually has to deliver the value. This is a book that if somebody reads it, they're going to be able to go from point A to point B. This is really trying to create value for your community. And by a result, you build a community of followers that actually trust you, that actually buy from you, and they'll buy more often. And because it's so much easier to do a transaction with someone who's already bought from you, that's trusted you, you build a community of really your best client segment. And like you said, it creates the content. It helps you leverage the content creation process for that only funnel strategy that has been brilliantly laid out by you and executed in a way that literally just puts your clients on that perfect life cycle and consumption process to just be every single day moving more closer to their goals and really positioning that and giving thanks to the relationship with you. So what I want to do today is I want to go through that process we went for somebody who is on here who understands, hey, listen, I want to get customers. I need a better strategy. I don't want to just be, on this transactional treadmill, if you will. I'd like to actually build a community that I serve while fulfilling my purpose, because I realize the benefit to doing what I'm currently doing is not really as beneficial and ideal of a process of every month trying to figure out where I'm going to get my next sale. And I'd rather take a more strategic approach and exercise digital custody and really what is stewardship over somebody that I can help. And I want to make one point. When you're exercising digital custody, the most important thing is that we're going to discuss is truly understanding what you're the best in the world at. We'll discuss that in a minute. Right. But that is important in figuring out what you had said earlier, Woods, is your ideal client, your ideal market segment.
Right. And I know that there's some carnival marketers on the podcast right now, and that's okay, guys. Listen, I have been there. I have done things in the past. I have focused on the shiny object and dangled that carrot out there, and I've made the quick money. But you know what? If you really dive into what we're going to talk about today, you're going to see that it is much better to sacrifice $1 million today in order to create 1 million followers forever, right? That will continue to pay you, and also that you're going to provide much more value to, and you're going to feel a lot better about what you do. It's just a much more fulfilling process. And the good news is that the process that I think, Michael, you've really laid out so brilliantly, it actually can get you there very quickly. It took us a while this is actually, a decade plus of selling online, of creating marketing funnels, of doing live events, face-to-face selling, workshops, all kinds of different methodologies in order to create customers. And it's finally come down and been distilled down into a process that, like you said, now we can execute in 60 days, and you can too. So let's get right into the process, Michael, and kind of lay out what they can expect and what they can do.
Yeah. So when we our goal, we had a very specific goal in mind. To give some context, I've seen Woods create funnels that produce millions and millions of dollars in annual revenue. I've seen him really just knock the cover off the ball when it comes to selling products and services. So we went to the we started with the goal. We always start with the goal, and you should too. And the goal was for us to, in this particular arena, was to create a real audience based upon a very specific niche. And so we really got real clear. And the process that we used, this process was created that we're going to share with you is we started, and we'll go into detail, but this process that we used was for creating the actual book, which was the first step in the overall process and strategy of digital custody. The book part is we went and we established what we call as our hit factory. We've been in the hit factory all day today. If you don't have a hit factory, you need to establish your hit factory. We'll talk about what that means. We completed what now is called our core story canvas and positioning statements. We created, and really got clear on our ICP, our audience. We researched, and we'll talk to you about today, about researching your topic and what exactly you need to do and the process we used, and really the mental models and framework in which we were able to make decisions and choices. We brought that all together, and then we started sorting our topics and getting those all organized into what we then was table of contents and chapters. And then that actually ended up getting us into what is arguably the most important part of actually the writing of the book, which was the introduction, which we'll go into that. And then we, kind of like we are right now, we got on a mic and we laid out some of that content in an audio format, and that turned into a really rough first draft. And so today, we're going to talk to you about not just becoming the digital president, writing the book so that you can become the digital president in any niche. And we're going to break those things down. So when we establish the hit factory, a couple of things. First, you want to establish a place where you're going to want to work, somewhere that's comfortable. I think we have a beanbag, a couple extra chairs, we have a heater in there if it's cold.
And we have lots of wall space, lots of empty wall space. I was really excited when about the house that I currently live in when I moved to Frisco, Texas from Arizona, because the office was absolutely beautiful. These wood paneling and everything, it was just really pretty, and I was excited about this office. And then my wife is an interior designer, and she filled it to the hilt with furniture and pictures and everything. Michael's office is much more suited to this process. There's nothing on the walls, and that's actually really important. Because you're going to be putting some stuff up on the walls, and we'll explain that.
Yeah, and I, this is something that, if you think about people that are out there in the music industry, think of the music studio. You're creating your studio where you're going to go lay down your tracks. I've spent a lot of times with some of the top marketers. I've spent several times I've been out to Frank Kern's home, who's a top internet marketer, or Jay Abraham's home. And Jay Abraham has a place where he does what Jay Abraham does. Frank Kern has a place where Frank Kern does what he does. And so you need to establish that for you. And then what you really want to do is you want to establish a rhythm. And so right now, what we have done is we established different sprints, jam sessions, things that I would call binges, and something that's actually on the calendar for us right now, which is something from a Navy SEAL term called a Hell Week. And so when we're out there actually creating the content, hope is not a strategy. You're not going to randomly nail these boards together. And so when you're writing the book, I can't express how important it is to understand it all comes together once the book's done. It's like literally putting Legos together or IKEA furniture. Like the fundamental groundwork that goes into what we're going to talk to you about today will literally pay you forever. And so if you follow this process, it is going to give you the processes and the mental models for creating the content for the book and for your community. And that is going to, over time, serve you in more different medias than you can even imagine when you repurpose this and we walk you through that process to where you literally are going to be providing value to your community. And it's all going to start with writing the book. So the book has to get done. You have to set a date in which you're going to get it done. You have to align the calendar. And you have to understand, some things are going to sprint. That means like we sprinted out, on our book, we sprinted out the design. We sat down and we were not going to get done until we had the branding done and over, and we actually had some design briefs, if you will, right, that we wanted to get that process started so that it could get on the conveyor belt, because there was actually going to be professional designers working on our brand. So we wanted to get all of our thoughts together. So we coordinated that in the form of a sprint.
And the sprints really flow out of our experience in developing technology and software products, it's just an agile product development process that involves really getting clear on a very specific goal with a very specific time frame. Usually it's a week or 2 weeks. For us, it's generally never longer than a week. And laying out all of the sticky notes with all of the specific tasks that need to be accomplished in order to get the project finished. And so that's how we run the sprints. Jam sessions, these are actually probably some of my favorite because those are generally a little bit of a longer time. That's generally about 3 hours where you're just really going to hammer down and knock something out. And this allows you to get into that zone where you're going to get into some deep thought.
Absolutely. And so, we'll lay out jam sessions for like our project. We would meet in the mornings, in the evenings, times that were very convenient. They were predetermined. And in those jam sessions, sometimes you go into those jam sessions highly flexible. You're starting that jam session to really get really clear on if we could get one thing done in 90 minutes, what are we going to get done? Right. And so that is kind of the meeting rhythm. The binges are probably my favorite. And the reason why is it's like watching, your favorite show. It would be like someone telling you about a season of, something on Netflix, and you watched one episode and you literally want to watch them all in a row, because the binges is when you're really trying to get to a finish line. You're like, can we get to here by then? And it's like, man, that would be really cool if we could. Man, you'd make a lot of progress. And so those are going to tend to be 3 day straights. Me and Woods have cranked on a lot of binges before, and they're usually when our families are out of town and we can hook up on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday and just go through and write what we would call hits up in the hit factory. And you will too. There's just going to be times in your life where it's very convenient for you to have 2 days straight to get completely focused and define a finish line that you're going to get across by those next 2 days, and then deconstruct and unpack exactly what would need to be done in what order, get a real logical sequence in place, and then go and start. And that's what it's about. It's about getting to work. This is about making it happen. This is not hard to do. I literally, I promise you, this could be done. I don't care if you have an occupation. It doesn't matter. This is something that you can do by getting it in your calendar and making a commitment to getting it done. It is unbelievable. Hell Week is going to be, it's going to be hell. You're actually scheduling only your sleep. So in
4 hour increments.
Yeah. So you're scheduling your sleep. You're like saying, okay, here is my commitment to whatever you have a commitment to. And then you're going to, outside of that, you're going to find every single bit of discretionary time, and you are going to block that out for exactly what you need to get done. And that's just to get this project done, because the minute you get it done, everything in your life becomes infinitely easier from that day forward.
And I want to make a quick comment about Hell Week, because there's probably people listening that are thinking like, well, I can't fit that into my lifestyle, or, that's not balanced and that's not good. And I really believe in having a balanced lifestyle. Having family is very important to me, and being able to contribute and be there. But what Hell Week does for you is it's number one, it solidifies your commitment to nailing this process, to nailing your book, to nailing your product, to nailing becoming the digital president. Listen, you don't get to become the president without running the race. You don't get to become the president without making a commitment. And so Hell Week solidifies that. And the beauty of it is that it's a week. And I'm telling you that anybody, no matter how old you are, no matter how many obligations you have, you can sacrifice and you can run on 4 hours of sleep a night for a week. You can do it. And you'll be amazed at what you can accomplish.
How good do you feel when you get across that finish line?
You feel amazing. You feel amazing because now you're by the end of
taste it.
You can taste it, absolutely. And what happens too, and it's easier for us because we've experienced the result.
True.
Of what happens, and so you have to trust us here that this is worth it.
Yeah.
But there's proof.
And this I want to talk conceptually here. I mean, last year we from concept. Twice, 2 different product lines from concept with this same formula, from sprints and jam sessions, binges, and Hell Weeks. We created 2 products in the last, I would say 14, 15 months that generated, one was up to over $500,000 in monthly revenue, and one is still at a couple $100,000 in monthly revenue. So for us, what you nailed is we've had the experience of what comes out the other side of getting really clearly focused, what an only funnel can do for you and your life and your business. But it does take a little bit of sacrifice on the front end. You have to want to win the election. And that might mean you're going to have to go speak in North Carolina and Florida and, Iowa or Idaho, wherever, the battleground states. When it comes down to winning, you got to make it happen. And that's what this is about. And this is for somebody who is suited and qualified to be the digital president, because being to whom much is given,
much is required.
So that's the point. So in this entire process, you're just stacking ammo. We're going to talk a lot about, you're going to think we're sponsored by Post-it by the end of this, but stacking ammo through this entire process when you're doing sprints and jam sessions and binges and hell weeks is you're just stacking content, you're organizing content, and you're getting really, really clear.
Speaking of getting clear and that process of really stacking ammo, why don't you talk a little bit, Michael, about the core story canvas, and really, because that kind of lays out the foundation for all that to flow out of.
Yeah, the core story canvas, it's really a collection. It's of all of the material that you're going to need, as everybody's going to have a different experience with marketing, but you are going to have a story that can be put into a marketing framework. This is basically the process for organizing all that raw material. And so where we start, before we even start the book, we go here, and it helps lay out kind of like a beacon, a light to kind of push us in the direction of where we need to go, and a reminder, kind of like a filter for what content makes it into the book, because the goal of the book is to serve a perfect client, that one person. And in doing that, you're actually making sure you're organizing all your material in a way that you're hitting the objective and the goal each time. So it's going to be like that place that captures the current set of products and services you have, but that doesn't mean that you aren't going to take into consideration through this process that there's a different opportunity. So you want to be open, because that's the process. You're going to think about the ICP. You're going to know that person's biggest problem. What is your story all about? The hero in your story. When does your story come to life? What is your magic power? What makes you qualified? What is your backstory, that allows you to serve this community at that level? And more important than that, we want to make sure that, you share how you discovered this and get around what we call your core philosophy, which is very important. We want to distill it down to the values and what you stand for, what you're fighting for. We want to kind of flush all of that out. And then any supporting stories that would demonstrate that you've actually lived your core philosophy. And, you want to always be able to answer the question, what makes that relevant today, Woods? And more importantly, how does that differentiate you, or really getting down to that core, that value proposition? And once that canvas is done, not only is it refreshing, and it is, for some people it's a sprint, for some people it might be a binge. It depends on how much back work. But when you get done with that, it literally makes the process for writing the book infinitely easier, almost filling in the blanks.
Right, and it becomes a platform that all of your content will flow out of. It's really amazing what it does in the process.
So when we went through this, we worked really closely together from a marketing perspective. And Woods always says, if we're doing a webinar, he says, what's the headline? If we're doing a marketing piece, which I think the best marketing piece I ever saw, I got to see today, which is amazing. I really love the art of marketing and am fascinated with, really getting into the client's mind, Woods. Share with everybody really the process that you go through when actually choosing an ICP, because again, this is just a marketing piece. It's a book. So the process is the same. How important is that? And unpack that.
Well, first of all, when it comes to marketing, really all we are doing is leveraging psychological principles of influence in order to get somebody to take an action that will help them, right? All of us are here on this podcast. You have a product, you have a service, you have something that will serve somebody and bring them value in their life. And you want as many people as possible to receive that value, and obviously you're compensated for providing that. And so obviously, the more people that you can convince to do that, the better. And so all we're doing is leveraging those principles of influence in order to get those people to do that. And so it's very important that we understand the psychology of that person who is going to benefit from your product or service, and really thinking about that ideal client that you can serve. What does we all have them? We can all think of them. We go through a process where we actually identify that one person. They have a name. They have all the information about that ICP in order to be able to speak directly to them. And so you think about what their characteristics are. What are the characteristics of that person, that ideal client that you like to serve? And more importantly, what are their problems, right? What are their pains? We always talk about being in the business of selling painkillers instead of candy. But, what are the gains that they're looking for? What are the opportunities that they're looking for? And then also, too, again, just thinking through that framework of one person, what's their big problem? How can you solve it? And then also, too, what are their big desires and how can you speak to those desires?
I think one thing that's really important that you nailed right there, Woods, is we always ask our question every time. You said you might have a product and services. There's so many times like the idea that you're going to have for your book might be more alignment with a passion or something in the back of your mind. And so what was always helpful for me, this has been helpful every time, which is what are the characteristics of that person? What are the problems that they have to have if solving their problem for them, they only paid you in arrear? Meaning, what would that person have to have for you to be so confident? And the only reason I share that is because that's more at the development stage. When you're writing your book, if there is a natural power or something inside you that you can bring a lot of value to your current community or a community or somewhere or something that you're not harnessing, and that's what you want to really align to, that by flushing that question out, by saying, for me, it was like, well, let me tell you what, if somebody wants to know how to do this, this, and this, I don't care. If they want those three things, they want to know how to get customers, they want to know how to leverage the internet, and they want to know how to crush, how teach someone how to crush over the phone, customer acquisition, sales development reps, inside sales agents, digital marketing, if you will. Give me somebody who has a problem getting a customer, and I will get paid in arrears. Shoot, I'll get paid when they get paid. Just give me a piece of the transaction, right? Because that's what I've done. Even in business development deals, millions and millions and millions of dollars where companies I've helped with that. And so I know when they have a customer that meets the profile of somebody that I know that I can help them get, then I get really clear on what it is that I can deliver. What I'm not trying to deliver is things that, can I sit down and write sales copy? Absolutely. Do I understand the framework for sales copy? Absolutely. But if I had a big, huge copy project that was going to be spending hundreds and thousands of dollars going into the direct mail space, I would probably lay out the framework with a professional copywriter, not because I don't know how to write copy, but because that's, first of all, not my purpose. I'm not going to go out there and provide copywriting services to people just because I've written copy for myself and I understand how to do it. To me, that's work. There's no passion in that. Right. Could I do it for somebody who's not getting an email open? Absolutely. If somebody's not getting a landing page open, 100%. I do it for myself, but I'm not going into that business. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And
I'm not going to go write the book on it.
Yeah, and sometimes, people on the opposite end of that too, I think some people make those decisions based on money. I mean, just because there's an opportunity to get paid doing something doesn't mean you should be doing it, right? It's really about doing what you want to do, what you love to do, and doing that with the people that you love to serve. And that's what the ICP, the ideal client profile, gives you. It gives you the ideal client. That's what it delivers.
And I think that what you said as far as the desire, desire is probably the most important thing. When people desire something, they will do way more than if they don't desire it. That's probably one of the biggest marketing principles that I learned. And so you don't ever want to be in the business of, trying to provoke someone's desire by, making them feel uncomfortable or leveraging fear or manipulating people. That's not what it is. The key is that you have to genuinely understand in your prospect's mind what keeps them up at night, what's the rock in their shoe, what's the thing that they would walk barefoot uphill if someone had a solution to something. And at the end of the day, I like the question you always ask me, Mike, is like, so what do you think they would pay for that to go away? Because that gives you a level of, is this essential or nice to have? If someone would pay a lot of money for that problem to go away, then it's probably a big problem. If they're not really, the biggest thing I see people make is go write a book on a subject that's not solving a real problem, and you're infinitely going to be having your own set of problems. Or you might be happy that you wrote a book, but you're not going to write a book that's going to produce six figures, millions of dollars in revenue for you and your business and your family because you messed up this step. So make sure that you're serving a community, you're thinking through the power of one, and that you understand what the desires are for your ideal client.
Absolutely. And then so once you have that ideal client nailed down, then you can really start to move on to all of the ways in which you're going to start solving that problem for your ideal client, right? And your product or your service, what you do, addresses that. So now is the time to really start researching, flushing out all of the content and all of the research around your topic, which is related to solving that problem, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Once you have your core story canvas and once you have your ICP document, you really have the arsenal and all of the tools, all of the framework, all of the strategic thinking. You're not going to have writer's block because you're just answering questions. It would be no different than me asking you a question, Woods. Like if I said to you, okay, Woods, tell me what is your core story? Tell me about, an example. What would the characteristics of the problem have to be for you to get paid? And I'm sure yours would be getting a customer. It'd probably be something heavily marketing. And then I would say, okay, well, and we would go through all this raw material is now on the table. It is so fulfilling because when you get to the next step of starting to research your topic, you literally are going to start stacking all of the ammo. You're going to get really, really, really clear. And I think, when we worked on the book, Digital Custody, in the process of writing that book, one of the things that we knew is when we got to the research of the topic phase, we had finished the canvas. So we knew everything. We had went through the story of, I remember one of them, it was one of your stories about creating an online business. It had to do with getting customers in real estate. That was a very specific niche, which was short sell.
Right.
And when you had literally created a back end where you changed your ICP from an investor over to a real estate agent, and we're making literally $500,000 a month on the back end and a few hundred, 300,000 on the front end. It was a remarkable story. All of those things were organized. When we went to writing the book, we had to start researching all the topics that we were going to write on. And so the objective of researching the topic is you want to organize your research into basically a dozen, 12, maybe 10 distinct groups. And you want to have basically one topic per group. And when this is done, then it's time to do what we call as a little detail organizing. And so when you have a sea of topics and ideas, that are basically now all over your hit factory.
That's why I said it was important to have some clear space on the walls.
Right. So you have all these things. We have these huge stickies with little stickies on them. And the concept would be for us, we have the concept of the only funnel. We believe that you only need one funnel to build a $5 million business, to net $1 million. You only need one funnel. You don't need to have multiple funnels. And so it's really an inch wide and a mile deep. So when we went through this process of our research, we had to go through all of the different things that we knew as it relates to, we had written many books at that point. We had marketed several books. I remember one of the biggest things I did, Woods, which was in our core story canvas, is I launched a book with Jay Abraham and put like 5,000 people on a webinar, filled a live event that was $1,000 and had, I think our average revenue per seat was over $4,000 per person, like 1.4 million at a live event, right? Mm-hmm. That was all through solving a huge problem with a funnel with a book. And so that story And that topic, we unpacked your story, and all these stories were around funnels, because part of digital custody is going out there and really attracting with the book into a funnel, a way to deliver customers into a community so that you can essentially win the crowd and win your freedom, which is really at the heart of our strategy, is because the best life to live was a life by strategy. So you could do the things you wanted to do, not have products and services that had long tails and a lot of people in order to fulfill. We wanted things that had very, once all the work was done, you can monetize them, but we wanted to be fulfilled in a way where we knew that our customers were going to be happy, where we were contributing to people's and making people's life better, because that was important to us. And so when you're researching the topic like we did, we broke it down. It was like the books, calls to action, the funnel, it was literally all of these stickies. And then we had to break that down and deconstruct it. So basically, you want to think about, for us, we had to think about that perfect customer, where they were, where they wanted to be, and what were the obstacles that were in their way. What were their top desires? Now we're reaching back into that core story canvas. We're reaching back into, our ICP. We're pulling out those characteristics. We're pulling out situations and solutions which were all part of it. And we're now putting all of this into like an organized format, and it's coming together, and it's like, oh my goodness. Like, I remember when we were working with a real estate investor that had serviced one of the top real estate investors in the country. For him, it was like, hey, my clients need cash, then they need properties, and then they need to sell the home. There's this he has a customer, they have a problem, and they have a desired outcome, and there's obstacles along the way. Those became an overarching topic in a linear format. We deconstructed each one of those down into what I would say is as they related to the situation and the goal, and then we unpacked all of those into points and subpoints. And that process of researching, brainstorming, getting a high level, 100% high level across the top. What are all the different pieces that make up my book that I'm going to write? And then once you decide what all of those topics could be, this is a creative, nothing's wrong. It's no bad ideas. What are all the things that happen for your client to go from where they are to where they want to go? What are all the things that have to happen? If it was, I want to give you so many examples, but the bottom line is you have to know what your person is, where they are, where they want to go, what are all the steps in the way, what are all the obstacles, what are all the things around it. And then when you do that, you have this literally room full of sticky notes, big ones, little ones, with all of this stuff. And you look at it and you know what you see? You see a book. You're like, oh my gosh, there is a book here. I could literally write a blog post, an article, a chapter on like any one of these 15 things. And that is like the research process that it's so fulfilling, especially if you're solving a problem that you know is going to literally help somebody. If you're solving real problems that change people's lives, that can literally help people get to their goals. If you've done all the stuff up front, all the heavy lifting, then you start to get empowered and encouraged. And it gives you that momentum to say, man, I got to get this thing across the finish line.
That's right. And once you have all of that, you have the room full of stickies and you're surrounded by all the content, all the topics, all the ideas, all of the resources that you're going to be able to give people to download and to read and to consume. All of that's out. The next step is bringing it all together and getting it into a linear format and starting to kind of organize all of that research into the topics. And that's what's so great about sticky notes. Number one, the thing that I love about sticky notes is that no bad idea or thing that is not ultimately going to make the cut live somewhere forever. You can just take it right off the wall, tear it up, throw it in the trash can, and it's gone, right? And also, too, the beautiful thing about sticky notes, it's easy to move them around. It's easy to move them into groups and start to organize your content in a way that is linear, that makes sense. Oh, we're thinking about this one particular story that relates to this topic. Okay, let's move all of those over here. And that's part of the process, is to start to organize all of your topics into a logical order. And when you have that, you have distinct categories or distinct topics. And you're starting, that's when you go from seeing, okay, I got all the stuff that's going to make the book. Now you're starting to see, oh my goodness, I've got chapters here, right? I have fully flushed out, developed chapters, starting to see a step-by-step process, right? And then so you can actually get into the process of starting to lay out all the calls to actions that are going to go to the end of your chapters, because we want people to be able to download resources and consume more and dive deeper. You can start to lay out your chapter outlines, map out all the stories and points and subpoints that are going to go under that category, and ultimately create your introduction for your book and lay out all of the interview questions and outline, record all of your content, record those questions that help you flush out that content, and then you end up being able to transcribe your rough draft, and you've actually got the beginnings of your book. So maybe you could talk a little bit about, kind of the next steps of after that process, after you kind of started to arrange those things and started to lay all that out.
Well, and that I think you described the process well. Starting to bring it out all together is like fundamentally the next steps. And when you said organize your research into clearly defined topics, that's like laying out your table of contents. You want to lay out your table of contents, but you want to turn each section and really think about it from a benefit, like an enriched statement. Think about your chapters as you want to sell them of the outcome that they're going to achieve by reading. I mean, about a book, so many people don't finish a book, and we'll talk about the most important part of your entire book here in a second. But the point is that each chapter, when someone looks at the table of contents, they're trying to see, should they read this book? They're saying, oh, how many times have you looked at a book and said, oh, I want to read what that's about? So you're browsing, and these need to be marketing headlines that are selling the benefits. And then you want to lay out the order in which that you're when you have all of them out, and they're not linear yet. You make them linear. You organize them in a way that you feel like your person would have to go, what they would have to learn in order to overcome any obstacles in order to get to their desired result. That's what makes the book, when you start laying out the content in a way that they're going to read it. This is where the reader is going to feel like they're on this journey. I like if you have a customer journey already in your business, then you know what I'm talking about. The customer journey is kind of this life cycle in which they go, and that helps add some context in which how you're going to take your customer from where they are to where they want to be, and that gives you a way to how to organize what is going to be the table of contents. Again, in the real estate investor space, if I'm writing a book, it might be how to retire on real estate investing. I might think that my ICP their big problem is they don't have any money, but they want to retire rich in real estate. And so I'm going to write a book called, something, whatever. And it's chapter 1 might be about getting money. Chapter 2 might be about finding deals. Chapter 3 might be about closing and, fixing up the house and finding dependable vendors that can work on the property. So that's how you're laying those out as far as it relates to chapters. Then, what you can do is you can look and see, is there any clear, when you're laying out your book, you want to see if there's any defining lines between your content. Some books will have like 3 sections, but each section will have 3 to 4 chapters. And so I've never written a book that was laid out that way. I've read several of them. One that I remember was 4 Hour Body. The very first thing it said, don't read this book linear, jump to the section that is most relevant to your body, right? And so that's the type of book that is. But now it's time to lay out the chapters as we were talking. I think this is the most fun part when we were doing our book, which was laying out the chapters. Why don't you talk a little bit about that process, and maybe we can ping and pong. I know that was something, that is... It's extremely important. It's extremely fun. And again, I think what Woods had said earlier, you have a lot of Post-its around. So again, what you might be seeing in your mind's eye is like writing a book is writing. When you have all these pieces and all these things done, it's organizing. This is strategy and laying it out, and it's coming together. You really haven't written a bunch.
Right. And this is really simple. All of the topics, which are your main points, you want to have those on the top row going from left to right. And then any related, I guess, the sub points of those topics are going from top to bottom underneath all of them. And our stickies contain headlines or points that we want to communicate, okay? We don't try to flush out. There's not sentences on these stickies. These are things that you're gonna talk through all of this later, and that's where the content and the sentences are going to be formed, is on an audio recording.
Yeah, and it's the point. It's what is the point?
That's what we're always asking. That's the magic question, by the way, is what is the point?
Yeah, and you want to know what is the point. And so from there, you're gonna, when you're looking across, you're gonna ask yourself, what is your main topics and what are the points and the stories that support those topics? And just as a tip, you want to think about this. What is the outcomes you want your readers to come to in each chapter? You always want to make sure, and this is something Woods is always doing when he's scanning the content, he's making sure that everything is going to make sense to the reader as it relates to the point, the topic, and that we're delivering the objective as it relates to the overall goal of that chapter.
Right, and that's going to be really important too. You'll see this framework play out because generally at the end of every chapter or somewhere within the chapter, there's some type of a call to action. There's some type of a resource that we're giving them to download that's important to get them from beginning to end of that chapter, of that little mini part of their journey through the overall book, right? And so once you've identified all of those main points and then all the sub points, and you've organized them in that fashion, and you are going to start to brainstorm all of those calls to action, like I said, which are generally resources. Think about something that somebody could
think
download.
about a book. Let's think about a book. Like if let's say the book on writing the book, chapter 1 would be, let's just say your ICP. Chapter 2 would be your value proposition. Chapter 3. What would you would?
Well, yeah. So let's think through that. So if chapter 1,
core story canvas,
book, yeah. If it was about ICP, let's give them the checklist with the questionnaire that you fill out to identify all the key characteristics of your ICP. Right. So that's going to be a resource that's very, very helpful for that person to go and download. This is part of the strategy of the only funnel, which is delivering more value to the person who is reading your book and also bringing them into your community.
Right, yeah, you're building value with them by helping them by actually helping them.
Right. So when you are clear on all these topics, you're going to get really clear on what are those resources. Think about, man, what could I give this person here that's going to add a lot of value? And some of these things might be like checklists, guides, maybe a video or an example to model, some type of a recording, or even a podcast, for example, a podcast episode that could speak directly to what they're trying to accomplish, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's a point, just as a tip. When you go through our only funnel process and you're really executing what we consider digital custody, when you lay out the book, and every chapter is going to become a post, an article, a podcast, a call to action. That's probably one of the most important things that people don't realize. You are not just writing a book. When you want to live a life by strategy, if you want to spend time at the lake, if you are building a house, think about the house you live in. You have to lay the foundation. It takes time. I see new construction where we live all the time. Once it's built, it's built. And that is what you are doing. You are becoming the person who is taking ownership of building something that is going to serve you and your business by taking custody over a specific client target market and a client segment, if you will, and serving them. And so it's very motivating to do and go through this process.
And the book really is the foundation that you're building on. And like building a home, the foundation is one of the most important things because everything's built on top of it, right? And if there's a crack in the foundation, then it's going to be a problem. And so even more so, if it can be so much of a problem that people might not buy the house if it has foundation issues, right? And so when you're thinking about how important this book is, the next step in the process is the
counterintuitive.
Well, it's the most important part of the actual book.
Yeah, and let me just let me qualify that statement. The most important part of the book, meaning the introduction, is going to be actually written last. but it is the most important part because it is going to be read first. And it's written last because you literally have you are selling the book. And you don't want to have to rewrite the introduction. You might have an idea change, a concept change. You don't want to spend a lot of time there. But when you get done with the book and the chapters and everything is done, typically the best thing, what has worked for us and other people as well, is go back and then write your introduction. And so let's really talk about the goal of the introduction, what the objective is, and then just give them some framework, if you will, because I know that was always, it's approached like a sales letter, like a marketing letter. So let's give them, and again, we're reaching back into that core story canvas again. So let's just break them down with that.
Right. Well, you nailed it. I mean, the purpose is to sell. And this is a sales letter. If you're a marketer and you've written a sales letter, you know that there's a specific format to that, and you're going to follow the same format when you are writing the introduction to your book. The first step, number one, is the hook, or what we term as the call out. We are calling out our ideal client, our ICP, and we are speaking directly to that one person. We're speaking to their problem and letting them know that this book has this solution. So we're hooking them in right from the start. And we're also polarizing in a little bit of a sense there against the people who are not our ideal clients.
Carnival marketers.
Right. So you know, once you've called out that ICP and hooked them in, you've identified what their problem is, and you start to present your solution, which is the book, which is outlined in the book, right? And because you want them to come along this journey with you to solve their problem.
And so here's what I want to say here. I think this is, as a marketer, Woods, just to kind of hit pause and come up for air. I think the entire process, I say this is the most important part of the book. I say the most important part of this part of the book. So if it's the most important part, and this is the most important part of the book
matrix,
yeah, then it's core philosophy. So Can you share with us why and how, just from a marketing point of view, why it's so important and how?
Well, when you think about your core philosophy, I mean, this is like your core belief. It's what you stand for. It is really at the heart of your value proposition is your core philosophy. So we love to exercise and work out. And we went to Orange Theory for a couple of months, and we've been going to Orange Theory and really like the way that fitness program works. And so when you think about their core philosophy is very clear.
They have a theory.
Yeah, all right, a theory, right? And it's that...
And they wrote a book.
Right. that you get your heart rate up into the orange zone, right? And through these exercises, through these high-intensity workouts, and there's massive amounts of benefit.
And I would say it's not only high intensity, it's
right. It's the interval training. It's going
that's
up
their
and down,
theory. That's their theory.
Yeah, in and out of the orange zone, right, is the theory behind Orange Theory. But that's at the heart of everything that they do. As you said, they wrote the book about it. It is clearly communicated. When you go to Orange Theory, it's very simple. Your goal is to spend 12 or more minutes in the orange zone. And there's a big TV up there that shows everybody's scores, a little scorecard.
While they're working out.
And you can see you're in the green, are you in the orange, are you in the red? And so there's a core philosophy that they believe in, that they communicate, and that's at the heart. If you don't believe that their theory is true, you're not going to go to Orange Theory.
And they don't want you.
They don't want you.
But you can't ever get in anyway if you wanted to, because they literally have identified a problem in the market and communicated to a very specific segment, and it has made them uberly successful.
Absolutely. And in fact, if you are trying to get in, you better be quick on your app, because if you don't cancel that thing or...
Yeah, they charge you.
They do charge you.
And I like it.
Yeah, it definitely holds you accountable. But anyways, that's beside the point. It's so the core philosophy is what everything will flow out from, and you want to be able to communicate that and have people buy into that in your introduction. After you have communicated your core philosophy, you want to establish credibility, why they should believe your core philosophy, right? Why your core philosophy is authentic.
Yeah, and why you're credible. Why can you write about, you can't write a book about writing a book and making millions of dollars unless you actually literally made millions of dollars because you've written a book. And I don't think you could have only done it once. I think you have to have actually made millions of dollars repeatedly from your efforts of writing a book to write a book about that.
Especially if you expect somebody else to repeat it.
Right? Absolutely. And so at the end of the day, you want to have a positioning statement. So you're establishing your core philosophy, you're establishing your credibility, you're establishing your positioning statement, which is, again, going back into your core story canvas. You're taking these stickies now, and we're going to walk you through, like, you take these stickies, and when you then deconstruct them into the actual content that was behind the point, you realize that you were sitting on the book. You had it all there organized. Now you are just putting the stories behind it. And so you want to make sure on the sales letter format of it, you want to make sure that you have your positioning statement, because they're going to open it, they're going to know you're credible, and they're going to want to know why you specialize in helping people create a life by strategy so that they can spend time with their family and have marketing funnels and wake up every morning with cha-changs in their inbox, because they knew that their ideas should make money on the internet, but for some reason they just had a hard time cracking the code. And so they were trying 15 different things, and they never had any intention on being considered a carnival marketer, but no one had written the book on telling them that they only needed one funnel in order to net $1 million online. Anyway, that's just a joke. But you do want to know who your target market is. And in doing that, think about your positioning statement. It's going to be positioning you and your brand. And, it acts like really the roadmap for your marketing team and serves basically as a guidepost for all of your marketing plans going forward. And it's going to include your target market. Every product that you have in your business should have a very specific value proposition. And we want to know what that is. We want to know who that customer segment is. We want to know what, for every product, what promise it's making to the marketplace. Now, you don't have to do that in the introduction. In the introduction, if you have a product that your book is basically going to be leading them to, then you want to make sure that that's been considered and that information is here, and you're talking to those people. You want to, unpack the value proposition, if you will, inside of your positioning statement to really kind of talk to your target audience. And your target market. You want to make sure, like, you're letting your reader know how they're going to achieve the value. You want to try to provide some evidence inside of the introduction. You don't want to use any claims, obviously, but you do want to show your brand, that you want to establish your brand with the customer. And there's a lot of different best practices you can do there. I think the one of the main things in the introduction is outlining the key benefits and understanding benefits, just for everybody who might not be, an astute marketer or in sales, but you having a wonderful product, and this sounds like something that you really want to get behind and exercise, which I would encourage everybody to do because it really works really well. I think it's the only funnel you need in your entire business. But understanding the benefits versus features is, a feature is going to basically be what something is, right? So in the healthcare industry, if you went to a gym, their feature might be it's open 24 hours and they have a large set of cardiovascular equipment and they have multiple cardiovascular machines. A benefit would be that you don't have to wait in line. That you can come anytime that you want to, and that you can actually not hit plateaus because you can use various exercise machines. A feature is going to be, this is a cardio piece of machine. A benefit might be it has a rotary motion that's going to allow it to have no impacts on the knees. That's going to allow you to achieve a certain goal. So there's features and benefits, and people do not buy features, they buy benefits, and they specifically buy benefits that are in alignment with their desires. And nobody wants their knees to hurt when they're doing cardio. No one wants to wait in line when they're doing cardio, and nobody wants to do a bunch of cardio and hit a plateau.
Right. And a good way to identify those benefits and communicate them is to just speak about what their life will be like once they have achieved the desired outcome, right? What that feature or whatever you are producing, right? What is their life going to be like once they've attained it? And then, of course, you want to also give them proof that it is achievable. And you want to actually invite and motivate them to keep reading in a sentence or two. So you want to keep motivating them to keep going, right? You want to drop those little Easter eggs to keep them on the hunt.
Absolutely. And so the real component of this, if you are interested in actually writing a book, and you're interested in actually building your business and doing it in a way where you become the digital president, and you all of this really makes sense to you, then, we would be delighted to help you out. We've actually written a book, and the book we've written is called Digital Custody, Win the Crowd, Win Your Freedom. You can get a free copy chapter of the book, kind of give some contents. We'd be delighted to actually mail the book to you, a hard copy when it is available for mailing that fulfillment.
We'll pick it up. Let's pick it up from. Let's run it back.
So should we say? Here was the thing.
I think we leave a breadcrumb for him.
What I want to do,
the bread only funnel.
The breadcrumb I want to leave is then you have to turn all that into recordings and have it digitalized. They're sitting right there at that final piece.
Right. So then let's give it to him.
Okay. So then you just gonna say, and then the last step in the introduction is invite them, blah blah blah, and then right when you hit period, then I'll wrap this sentence up. Yeah. And when I wrap that up, then you got to wrap the whole thing up.
Okay, cool.
And then we're gonna end it with
right.
Win the crowd.
Win your freedom. Oh, dude. That's so funny. Much better than see you at the top or from the top. I mean, that's cool.
Yeah, it was still. We did it by accident, and it was. But those people listen. It's catchy.
Oh, I know. It's real catchy.
Yeah.
It's real catchy.
I hear the crowd.
All right. So, okay. So, and what you want to keep doing is just inviting them and motivating them to keep reading the next sentence. Right. You're dropping those little Easter eggs to keep them, coming down the trail. Right.
Absolutely. And so the way we bring this all together is, at this point, if you think about it, you've went through a process here. We've basically established your hit factory. We've created your core story canvas. We've defined your ICP and your audience. We've done all the research and reading. We brought it all together. We sorted our topics by groups into logical chapters. We've organized those topics into groups in run order, and then we basically taken those chapters and we've went back and did what we call is the most important part, which is the introduction. And, the final thing is laying out your rough draft. And I can tell you, there's two different ways that you can do it. What we do is we basically take that and then outline what we would consider our podcast, or we turn all of that content into questions. So if you think about the questions someone would actually ask you when writing, when trying to make a point. So I'll give you an example. You have all these stickies, and let's say you have one chapter, and let's say chapter 1 is determining your value proposition, and the components of that would be, one of them is, discovering when you're doing this step in the process, which is determining your value proposition. One of the things that you have to do is you have to understand what is the pain the customer has, and then you have to understand what are the gains that they're trying to achieve, and so in the process of laying out your book, you might have a sticky that says, well, I know in the value proposition, I have to understand the pains. And so you would ask someone to interview. Hi, Woods. And they would literally, you would repeat what they say to you in the interview. So you would literally set up a microphone. You can get, I think there's what's that microphone they call it?
The Snowball?
No, is it the Snowball?
The Yeti?
The Yeti, yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's you can go get like a Yeti from Best Buy, set it up real easy. They have
You
a
just
different
record into your computer. I mean, these don't have to be
my bad.
super
I'm
high
over.
quality.
Yeah, you're right. I was just thinking if someone's going to be interviewing, those have directional for two people. But y'all can both sit around your computer and just lay down the tracks, record your hit, get in your hit factory, lay out the questions. They're going to ask you a question. So tell me about tell me about a value proposition and why it's important when building a business. And then you're going to just answer that question. Every sticky gets turned into a question. Every question, you repeat the question, record. Every recording is then delivered to be transcribed. That transcription and that logical order of transcription is then turned into the book. If you read books, there's a dual readership pattern. You can read the book based upon the chapter. You can read through kind of the subtopics in a book, because books are typically laid out into sections. And so now you're going to take those stickies with the points and make them attractive headlines. So now you have all your chapters, you have your headlines that's selling the chapters, you have your stickies that now become recordings with subheads that you've now identified, and you want those to be congruent. So as you're telling the story, as Woods talked about earlier, going left to right, which is kind of the direction of the chapter, and going from top to bottom is going deep. The depth is kind of the paragraphs that make the points, that those subpoints that make and reestablish those points. And then you're always looking for stories about your life that help you, because people like stories. And so in this entire process, when you see a sticky that you have a story with, and if it's a really good, authentic story that is going to help support the point, then you're going to layer those into the book. And what you will be so amazed is a good editor at that point can help you get the book there. You're going to get, when I got my first draft back of the last book we did in the Only Funnel, I gave it to other people to read. I went back into my community, to my ICP. I had them ask questions. I wanted to make sure it made sense. All of that. So you're gonna get through the rough draft. You're gonna clean that up by adding the things that maybe didn't come out like you intended. You're gonna clean up your headlines, clean up your subheads. Really get to a really good manuscript. You're gonna get it to an editor. Get it so they'll make it where it's logical and flowing. The fun part is you're going to, at this point, you're going to be at the point where you could actually hand it to your spouse or someone else to read through to give you malicious feedbacks, and you want that. And that's really reworking that copy. I would say you get to a point where you need to have a date that you picked out, because you will never get it done. You'll keep trying to make it perfect, and that's not the way it works. I did this. Trust me here. I almost fell victim to this. I did go into a little quicksand and got out of it quick. I just was going to revise. Don't do that. You're going to go to maybe 3 total revisions. And then once you're there, self-publishing is really, really easy. We have a lot of content on our website that'll walk you through that. All of that information. There's actually some additional content there where we'll walk you through how to pick out an editor, exactly what the pros and cons are, and the things you need to watch out for publishing or having a ghostwriter. So any of that stuff, you can just go to digitalcustody.com and check it out.
Yeah, and I just want to give one quick pro tip on the interview. The interview, it's really helpful. Actually, I probably shouldn't. Probably should just wrap it up. I was going to say the interview. I might get this and then insert it. One quick tip on the interview. You might say, well, if I have the questions, I can just record it. But it's really helpful when you're talking with someone face to face. It's a lot easier to actually talk to them and teach them. Try to actually teach them the point that you're trying to make and tell them the story. You're going to speak differently to that one person than you are going to speak if you're just looking at a computer screen.
Yeah, it helps you get your voice.
Right. Establish your true voice.
Of talking to one person, because that's what you're doing. That's awesome. That's a great tip.
Awesome. and then we'll pick it back up here. So and so you just ran through all that stuff's on digitalcustody.com. Well, that wraps up this podcast on how to become the digital president and really the details of how you nail the core framework for crushing your book, which will really serve as the centerpiece for your digital presidency.
Can you start over and just read that when you say that?
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, that about wraps up. Okay. Awesome. Well, that wraps up this podcast episode on becoming the digital president, how writing a book positions you as the go-to expert so you can build a brand that will actually attract clients that look to you as their trusted advisor for advising them on how to go from where they are to where they want to be, which really unlocks the opportunity to become that digital president of any niche, right? And so we really hope that you've enjoyed this podcast. And again, if you'd like more to become the digital president of any niche. So Michael, any final words?
Yeah, no, the final words is, if you win the crowd, you win your freedom. And it's not about making money. It's about bringing as much value as you can to one person's life and learning to do that to as many people as possible, and becoming a guardian and taking ownership of actually a community and serving that community. It's a way better life to live. The best life to live is a life by strategy, and you don't want to get to the top of the ladder learning it was up against the wrong wall. So don't go for the short money. Become a strategist. The strategist always wins. Digital custody is the best strategy for building a business, both online and offline. This will serve you. It'll serve your family. It'll help you get all your business goals, personal goals. I can promise and assure you of that. If you like today's podcast, please like it, subscribe, leave a review. So come check us out at digitalcustody.com. And when you have digital custody, you win the crowd
and win your freedom.